Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and I hope all of you are having a fantastic day because we have a great show planned for you where in the first segment we have a great guest. Always enjoy having them on the program, and you may have heard of them. Advanced Micro Devices, or more commonly AMD. They make all those great processors, graphics cards, things like that. They will be joining us here today to talk about some of the innovation happening in terms of display and the future of computing. They are going to be presenting out at the I don't want to say convention, but out at the International Future Computing Association, and they have a big thing out there with TIFCA. If you want to check out more about that in particular, definitely last Thursday's show is where you want to be. But that's in the first part of the show today. In the second part, we have computer and technology news. I won't lie, a few stories about the state of cybersecurity when it comes to elections. That's obviously very important. Hopefully everyone out there was able to get to the polls, or, of course, when we are doing this live here today, it's getting towards the end of the day. But again, everyone, you have to do your part, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes making sure that this goes off without a hitch. So we like to report on that as well. But and other stories besides, find out second part of the show. But before we get started, let's talk about computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything from a link to our guest website to any articles, reviews, videos, anything that we talk about here on the program today, you can find in one spot. Also, check out the live stream over at twitch.tv/Computer America. And lastly, the social media contest available on our website, brought to you by Logitech. All that and more right there. But without further ado, why don't we go ahead, bring on our guest, and again, really looking forward to this conversation. So, as I said before, AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, and joining us today is the director and worldwide head of XR. If you've never heard that phrase, then, hey, we'll explain that. But of XR, displays, and wireless ecosystems for AMD, and this is, of course, Mr. Daryl Sartain. So, Daryl, welcome onto Computer America.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate the opportunity to talk, and I will point out real quick, I've already voted.
Oh,
so
great.
I took care of my part.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously great to hear that. I'm sporting my sticker myself right here. It allowed me to have a long lunch, so, there's more perks to that than you know. But before we go anywhere, why don't we go ahead and talk a bit about AMD. I think a lot of people out there, if they've ever built their own computer, they've seen plenty of products from AMD themselves. And but give us a bit of background on yourself and kind of your position. Where did you come from, and how did you find yourself working with the company?
Sure. So I'll be brief, but I've been out of college for some 33 years now. But all of it in the technology industry, and much of it in various startups. AMD is kind of the, I guess, stable job, if you will, for me, in that I've been here for 14 years, and prior to that, I kind of avoided large corporations. But I'll say that I stayed here because I genuinely enjoy the company, the culture, and what we do.
I gotcha. No, and obviously, if you want to pick a company to, kind of evolve with, I think, for whatever reason that you wanted to avoid, maybe the corporate culture or large companies, but AMD has seen a lot of shakeup over 14 years in particular, and and I am happy to say that a massive feeling between myself and colleagues when we talk about AMD is that you guys have really hit your stride over the past couple of years. So it must be a great time to be working at AMD and helping to bring some of these advancements.
Yes, agreed, and it does feel good. When you do reach those points, it feels very good.
Absolutely. So we're not going to be talking about any particular product. I saw that I just found a press release for some new data center GPUs that you have launched through AMD,
Right.
and I believe the new 7-nanometer architecture has just come out. But so those are some of the things that you've kind of come out with here recently. But I wanted to have a conversation about what you're going to be talking out there out there with TIFCA and at and of course, at that convention in not Vancouver, in up there in Canada, let's just say that
Toronto.
Toronto. Thank you. There we go. Toronto. Thank you. Let's have a conversation about what kind of a sneak peek what you are going to be talking about there. Our first question: handheld devices, and I guess always the role of traditional computers, because I'm sure that you've seen your fair share, here just kind of doing the news. Every year is the death of the PC. Without fail, every single year is the last year PC sales are going to be increasing, and smartphones, tablets, handhelds, those are going to start to devour the PC market. We haven't been seeing that, but talk about your perspective, and of course, handheld devices. Like, where's their place?
Well, it's a good question. I will say that as far back as when I first joined the company, as I said, 14 years ago, one of the in an early meeting I had, one of the comments made, and I can't recall exactly who made this comment, but a partner's something that I was at the time managing our desktop business, and the question was, so this is a temporary thing, right? Because like desktops will go away and notebooks will replace them. I've never believed that, and here we are, over a decade later, and desktops are still a very, very big business globally. Notebooks certainly have grown a great deal, and handhelds even more. So do I think the industry's changed and will continue? Absolutely. Do I think any of these are at immediate risk of disappearing or being subsumed, I guess? Mm-hmm. I really don't think so. And the one reason I would give above all is the processing power that you're able to achieve in something like a desktop or even in a notebook far exceeds what is possible in a smaller form factor. And if you just think of it from a physical size standpoint, that's likely to remain true for the foreseeable future. So for whatever progression occurs in the handheld, and we all have seen a great deal of progression, there has been equal progression in these other form factors as well. So our desire for power, for performance, continues to drive us to buy those form factors.
Now, there's obviously a couple facets to that, including more and more services are coming out with the idea that you stream games. The processing is done offsite at much larger facilities, and you simply add a little bit of latency, and you stream the game to your handheld. Like things like that, as well as compression methods, and making sure that the limited hardware you do have in handhelds goes further. Obviously not going to go away, but do you think things like that are going to see the rise of more, obviously smartphones are now like $1,400 a piece. Where's kind of the end game, or maybe not the end game, but the next 5-10 years?
Okay. So what I can tell you from my vantage point, at least, is to take what you just asked and reshape it in a slightly different form, which is, you just effectively made the argument that the desktop PC will remain forever. It's just no longer called a desktop PC. It's called a cloud PC. But essentially, you're making the argument, as do we, that cloud computing, you mentioned earlier that we just had an announcement, that whether that hardware, whether that massive compute capability sits in my living room, my office, my gaming room, or it sits in the cloud, it is an opportunity for tremendous compute power to be developed and leveraged. And so my definition, maybe I should be a little more abstract, my definition of platform, whether that is a personal PC or a shared resource that I subscribe to, that's still a great opportunity for compute development and delivery.
No, makes perfect sense, which of course leads us into, kind of a bit of our next one, which is obviously building a new computer. For a lot of people, it's no small investment. Some people really do enjoy the latest and greatest, and they're willing to, really spend the money every 6 months whenever there's a new 10% upgrade, which is fine. But for some people, every couple of years, they really want to get a good computer that will last them for, again, another couple of years. Talk about the investment in compute technology. As we mentioned, AMD, mainly GPUs and CPUs, so two of the most expensive components and two of the most complex. Right. And kind of the performance of a computer, the GPU and the CPU are really two of the biggest factors. Talk about is it still justifiable, because we've seen the price of graphics cards kind of increase as we've seen the demand for stronger graphics cards in everyday computers increase as well. Is that investment still worth it? Just better GPUs and CPUs for a higher price. How does that leave the everyday person?
Well, so I guess there's two ways maybe to take the question. One is the investment from a development standpoint, from like our company standpoint. Is it worth continuing the development and investment? Mm-hmm. The other would be on a personal level. Is it worth investing in the hardware to do so? I could address both of them fairly simply, and the answer, I think, is largely the same for both, which is when I look back 5 or 10 years ago, and I don't have a great memory, but I will say that, I can imagine, I recall vaguely 10 years ago, mm-hmm. when my children were younger and nice, that the technology that we had back then, I thought was fascinating, because in our industry, we generally have leading edge technology that we use every day. And yet when I look at that and I compare it to what I use on a daily basis today, and what I think a younger generation perhaps considers to be a norm technology level, we far exceed what was capable 10 years ago. Arguably in some cases, people would say that's kind of a pipe dream 10 years ago. And so the best answer I could give you is, I think until something comes along that stops us from progressing, our desire and our ability to leverage and to incorporate this evolving technology into our everyday lives just continues to be there. We continue as a community, as a society, to desire a way to use this technology. And honestly, I don't see any of that slowing down. As far as the cost of it, I know that some GPUs, some graphics cards have gone up in price, some CPUs, but conversely, I would suggest that the industry as a whole probably is not going up a great deal in terms of price. Rather, what's happening is you're seeing some niche opportunities to buy technology for certain use cases. But on the whole, I think the performance continues to go up, and the price either holds more or less, or in some cases perhaps drops slightly. Mm-hmm. And as long as that maintains, then I think people will continue to buy.
I think when I said that statement, I was kind of referring to my own experience, which is 10 to 15 years ago when I started building my first computers. Something let's take the most cutting edge graphics card that AMD may have, and something like that just wasn't. Like, don't get me wrong, there were good GPUs and CPUs back then, but the demand for really, really good hardware is so much stronger today because you have enthusiasts, you have professionals, right. You have people who are using this hardware before that just wasn't available. I don't know if there wasn't a market before, or just technology is what it is, and it's just advanced to the point where more people will benefit from what you're offering. But when I say prices go up, I mean that the top end goes up, right?
Well, and I think, though, that maybe a part of this also is again, the comfort level that a younger generation has become, buying generation now. Probably you fit in that category. And so as that generation who's perfectly comfortable with this technology comes into their own and has the ability and the means to go buy, you buy, I would imagine you buy based on a desired outcome, as opposed to, there was a time when, certainly earlier when I was buying computers years ago, it was based simply on either a budget as opposed to what I thought I could do with it, or it was based on blind ignorance of a brand name from somebody. Whereas today, I think people buy based on performance and they're willing to pay for it.
Right. Yeah, don't get me wrong. My first computer way back in the day, I simply bought Voodoo because Voodoo was, kind of what all my friends bought. So I didn't have any need for it, but hey, that's just what I did. You're absolutely right, though, and actually that does kind of bring up a question in my mind. Your job title, as I said before, head of XR, which if you wouldn't mind real quick explaining what XR is, and then I'll lead into my question.
Yeah, so XR basically, it's I got tired. We all in this industry got tired of saying VR, and AR and MR. So virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality. XR is essentially any immersive reality kind of industry.
I got you. So X is the variable, and slot in whatever value you want. Perfect. So okay, so XR, and that of course leads me to my question, which is, I guess the technology coming into its own. And one of these spaces, obviously, as your title, VR. There was VR back in the 90s. I've seen videos of that happening. It was, of course, 90s style kind of graphics. It wasn't as immersive as anything we have today. But, like you said, 10, 15 years ago, what we had available then, cutting edge, is nothing compared to what we have today. I don't want to say that VR dropped off completely. I'm sure it had its applications and it was continuing developing behind the scenes. But as far as the public-facing side goes, VR dropped off the face of the earth. It didn't really catch on, and then it came back a couple of years ago with these headsets and in these powerful computers. And VR is still here today. It's still growing its fan base. The technology is getting much more accessible. But what I'm saying is that in 20 years, hey, we're going to have another leap forward. My question is, with VR, AR, XR, whatever, are these technologies ready to invest in from a consumer point of view, or is this something that, I guess, is going to have an application, but maybe it's just not there yet?
Yeah, no, that's actually a very good question. And so I will say, I'll caveat that this is my own personal opinion, not so much, speaking for my company, but the challenge with the consumer market in general is consumers buy based on emotional needs, desires, whatever, and identifying what those are. Who would have thought that people would have an emotional tie to a cell phone? I mean, that's just 10 years ago was a ridiculous concept. And yet you have people who are passionately one or the other, they have a preference. So on the consumer front, it's going to be a matter of identifying what everybody calls the killer app or the killer opportunity. And I will assure you that all the people that I work with are striving to do just that in terms of either from a hardware standpoint or a software game development standpoint. However, the interesting thing is that while all that's true, I do believe that an industry that is willing and able and highly motivated to adopt and move rapidly into this space is the professional world, the enterprise industries. Examples would be design and automation. Anybody who's doing CAD type, massive design, architectural designs, automotive designs, etc. These tools have struggled forever. They've struggled to give good visualization opportunities. And in some cases, some industries have over the years spent millions to develop a single visualization chamber where one or two people can go and look at their models and such. So so there are real world value propositions that play into some industries already, where the existing hardware, the existing capabilities of these headsets are great. They will absolutely meet the needs, and I think those industries are migrating very aggressively to adopt this and to leverage it. The reason I point that out is that one of the things that makes consumer adoption attractive or interesting, of course, is price. Mm-hmm. And that's driven by volume. And so if another industry is driving volume, that gives the opportunity and the runway for this industry as a whole to develop, for prices to eventually stabilize, drop, feature sets to increase, and pretty soon you have consumer products.
That is very.
Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I think that as a user, I think that what we have now is wicked. I think it's awesome as a consumer user, as a game player. So, but again, I'm a technologist, and I understand that many people will see it. They'll look for something different. But while I think that the industry is here today, volume sales would suggest that we're waiting on something else. So hopefully the commercial industry will help drive that opportunity.
No, of course makes perfect sense. And I mean, even in the consumer space, like I was saying before, we saw that the headset was, a couple hundred, $800 or so. And then the hardware was $2,000. And actually one of the key, kind of factors into this was when AMD launched I believe it was the 290X or something like that, which was, kind of really touted to be a really good VR graphics card. That dropped the price down to like $1,200 for a computer. It's it halved in like 6 months to a year, and it's only gotten better. So so the price is definitely coming down. Talk about, and just real quick, there we go. Talk about, if you will, some of these other areas that obviously you are, and by you I mean AMD, that AMD is obviously invested in. We mentioned these new ones that are meant for data centers. Artificial intelligence, AI, machine learning, whatever you want to call it, needs its own XR category. But that is one of those technologies that is going to change the world, so they claim. How do you feel about that as someone who designs these kinds of systems? What are the bottlenecks? Are you overcoming them? And is there anything in AI or machine learning that is going to change the future?
So you said AI, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So yeah. I mean, I guess the challenge of answering that question is kind of like the challenge of answering what's XR. It's many things. Artificial intelligence, if you're a sci-fi enthusiast, is an android of some kind that walks around and talks to you. But I think the practical use of artificial intelligence, a lot of people don't realize. We use it every day. Many of us do every day in various search engines and so forth. So will it have an impact, and will it be leverageable in our industries as we go forward? Without a doubt, it already is. How it gets leveraged is what will be fascinating to see as it evolves. In the gaming space, just to give one example, and I think a lot of certainly gamers are aware of this, game developers are aware of this, but to give one practical example, in the gaming industries today, when you play a game, to make the game more immersive over the years, people have added greater and greater detail. And not just scene detail, but other characters, the people wandering around, and you're not really interacting with them, but they're out there someplace. Early games, those characters, those non-player characters were just rotely going in, various lines and whatever, and they had no value to the game. But through the use of some simple AI processes or tools, the game developers now are able to make other characters who are not central to the game actually react to the scene, react to your presence, and so forth. So those things make the believability, the engagement of that game greater. You may not even notice the subtlety of some of the change in the behavior of the characters, and yet at a very low level, internal level, that they're behaving to something you've done, and for that reason, you become more engaged, more engrossed in the game. Certainly, that would be true whether that game is VR or just a traditional monitor-based, display-based game. But that's just one example. And so we're seeing AI type or machine learning type applications being leveraged on very many fronts. I'll give one other quick example, which is probably not well known to people, and that is through the use of some of these machine learning techniques or AI techniques. A lot of the capabilities we see, a lot of the efficiencies and the ability, for instance, to stream high quality video, well, that's through codecs and such. But as we move forward, the ability for some of these devices, whether they're headsets or your PC feeding a headset, the ability for it to achieve that kind of performance just through raw horsepower is challenging. But when you put in some intelligence into the engine itself, you can actually reduce the amount of work being done, because now your game, your environment is adapting as it needs to, and so the hardware is not as stressed as it used to be. So there's opportunities to take kind of major leaps forward in experiences as we leverage this type of technology.
Right. No, very, very good examples. I definitely do like the non-playable character one, because recently Red Dead Redemption 2 just came out, and I have heard the complaint that the NPCs in that game, if you go off and murder someone, NPCs do kind of tend to look at you, take notice, report you to the authorities, and they're like, it's like one murder turns into 15 murders, and it's like, yeah, you're killing all of them. They are reacting very well to that. So it's definitely a lot of fun. And I will say that one interview that we still have to throw up on the show here, but we talked to IBM a little bit, and their research division, they were talking about how they're using AI to hopefully in the near future analyze text and speech and voice for emotion, and that's great for things like call centers. But they're also hoping to do that for video games, so that if you talk with a video game, the video game characters will be able to react to you in the tone that you talk and not just the words that you say. So a lot of great work being done there. And obviously, Daryl, this half hour has flown on by. Let's hit one or two more, and then of course we can have say good day. But we've been mentioning gaming this whole time, but talk about cloud computing. As I said, AMD has been huge into making sure that for any application that's happening out there, the hardware is optimized for it. The graphics cards and the CPUs that you are kind of selling to these massive server farms and things like that, it's not just your off the shelf GPU. They're optimized for different things. Talk about what I guess the future of the servers. How is that going to change people's and how is that going to change people's experience with how they relate to either healthcare or shipping or any other way? What are you hoping to see for the advancement of data servers?
Well, I will say that that's probably out of my space out of my realm, because I'm not actually part of the cloud organization or the cloud compute organization. And I kind of hate to step in there and make some comments that are misunderstood or.
Yeah, I completely understand you. But in these last 2 minutes there, instead of that one, let's get your personal opinion. What has you excited about the future of computing?
Well, so actually that's a good one to wrap up, because here's the thing: everything we just talked about is kind of all caught up in that title, future of computing. Mm-hmm. We didn't know 10 years ago, or most of the industry didn't know 10 years ago, what we have today, what today would look like. A lot of projections and guesses. In my mind, the terminology, the phrase future computing is a good way of saying we're trying not to define it as XR or as cloud or as AI, but rather we know that it's going to be totally different from what it is today. We do, however, know that we can say it's computing. There will be some kind of future computing state, and our goal, or my interpretation of all this is, our goal with this effort, with this future computing organization or TIFCA, is to be able to collaborate across the industry, collaborate with not just silicon guys, not just with us and other chip providers, mm-hmm. but also include software people, include platform people, OEMs. Ideally, we'd like to include retailers, people who actually sell the product. Because the interesting thing about all of what we do, whether it's a consumer side or an enterprise side, is I view the world very much from my vantage point. And it's only later when I engage, after I develop a product and I engage with a customer, that I learn his perspective. And then I may never learn the retailer's perspective. So the concept of something like of TIFCA is largely, I think, to try and bring perspective, bring everybody together, not to talk about confidential data, but to talk about our industries and our perspectives and our needs. What is it that is a problem for you or a pain point for you? And it gives us the opportunity to learn how to solve those, hopefully more rapidly.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I mentioned this when we had, let me get his name right just to be absolutely sure, when we had Mr. Neil Schneider on the show, that it's not often, I guess, the folks from either from IBM, AMD, Intel, and many others, there's not. Right. I assume you guys aren't all in the same Discord channel, and you're like, "Sup, guys? How's it going?" It just doesn't happen, and forums like these do provide that space where you can kind of just talk about where you guys think it's going. It's definitely a great thing that right. Neil's putting together. And hey, I'm looking forward to see what, and everyone out there, if you want to check out what's going to be happening, keep your eyes out. I believe that conference is happening the 8th and the 9th of November. And of course, everyone, we've been talking to AMD and more specifically, Mr. Daryl Sartain. And Daryl, thank you so much for coming on Computer America and talking with us.
Ben, thanks so much for the time.
Our pleasure. Have a great day. Thank you for voting, and thank you for coming on the program. Have a good one.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. And the music means that we are going to go ahead and go off into break. And in the meantime, thank you so much, AMD, for coming on. And thank you, everyone out there, for tuning in. We'll be right back. Computer and technology news right after this, commercials, and then we'll go from there. Everyone, stay tuned.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 3 minutes past the hour. I take that back. And everyone out there, thank you for joining us. If you missed any part of the show so far, the first half of the program was, of course, an interview with AMD. Always a lot of fun. And if you missed any part of that, check out wherever podcasts are heard, and Computer America should be right there. Just search Computer America on social media, on any server platform. And honestly, if we're not there, we'd love to hear from you live at computeramerica.com. Let us know, and we will pull some strings and do everything that we can to, hey, we'll come to you instead of the other way around. Try to make it convenient. If you are so kind as to listen to ourselves, then we want to make that easy for you. Now, in the meantime, we are about to do computer and technology news. And so why don't we go ahead and get started here in just a moment. And there we go. All right, computer technology news brought to you by Computer America. Here we go. Now, for our first story today, obviously Election Day. I've said it a couple times. I hope everyone out there, if you have not had your chance yet, go out and vote. And now, with that being said, we have a couple stories here about the state of cybersecurity with elections. We often talk about how here, I've mentioned quite a number of times, I don't think paper ballots are the answer. As a technologist, as someone who enjoys technology and thinks that it has the capability to answer a lot of the hard-hitting questions, going backwards in time to pen and paper just isn't the answer. But sometimes it is. And sometimes it is because, as much as I don't like it, things can go wrong, not on the technology level, not on the security level, but on the policy level. And this is an article from Motherboard. They usually have very, very good reporting. So we're not usually going to go through the entire article. But this one did catch my eye because of the day. And yes, Motherboard voting machine manual. Instructed election officials to use weak passwords. You know how we feel about passwords. Now, a vendor manual for voting machines used in about 10 states shows the vendor instructed customers to use trivial, easy to crack passwords and to reuse the passwords when changing login credentials. That's right. So no matter who logs into it, you want to make sure that anyone can get into it. Oh wait, that's the opposite of secure. So obviously states and counties have had 2 years since the 2016 presidential election to educate themselves about security's best practices and to fix security vulnerabilities in their election system and processes. But despite widespread concerns about election interferences from state-sponsored hackers in Russia and elsewhere, well, not everyone received the memo, that according to the article. Now, they have obviously a couple of redacted images here. You can catch it if you are checking out the video portion. This is the actual page on the, in the manual for setting up these systems. And yeah, you can see right there, the initial login will be administrator and password. I'm sure that the password, judging by the length of the black box on the redacted image, I'm betting the password is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 1234, password or admin. I'm guessing. Try one of those and it will probably work. Now, you can see the page here saying that you will be periodically asked to change your password per EAC regulation. When asked to change your password, to go back and forth between one password and another password, saying you make sure you write down the login and password before. That's right. I don't know. Actually, I do know because we report on this often. Don't write down your login information anywhere in person in physical space because that is awful. But here, yeah, they even give you the initial login and password and an area to fill those out, categorize them, and space to keep adding them as you change them. Saying that, and they even have another one there called the tabulator monitor. So obviously the system that tabulates and actually counts the votes. username, super user, password. I'm betting it's somewhere in the neighborhood of password. And then of course they give you a way to monitor the login and password for that as well. This is the cold side of cybersecurity, where you can have plans in place. You can see here by EAC regulation, whatever the heck EAC regulation is. Sure, it's election something. Let's see. Let's actually check that out. So EAC, the Eurasian Conformity Mark, is it a certified mark? No, that's not it. That's something for Russia. Whoops. Let's see. EAC for election. As soon as I learn how to spell election correctly. So I'm sure it's election management guidelines. Whatever. Point is, they're guidelines, I'm sure, to help people better secure their voting systems. And you can have the best practice in place where it says, change your password or change the username and password every day, every couple of hours, to make sure that no one has prior knowledge and is able to get in there and be able to change these systems and the votes inside them themselves. But from a human point of view, they obviously know people are not proactive enough. They know that they are not going to specifically remember the password and login, and they don't want to deal with everything slowing down to a crawl. They don't want to deal with people not being able to vote, to be able to cast their ballot just because someone forgot the username and password. Hence, horrible practices are put into place, such as this piece of paper, which, as I said, has you write down your login and password. Nowhere else, especially for something as important as the U.S. election system, and how often we've been talking about how many hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent to make sure that elections are not compromised, and then to have a policy like this in place in 10 different states. This is not something that is the fault of the U.S. government. This is not something that is the fault of any one person. This is a company that was contracted to make these machines, to make these user manuals, and they know, hey, the best intentions can lead to a lot of problems. And so they dumped it so far down that it's just not secure anymore. There are solutions to this. They don't involve writing down your password and username, but as of right now, this is the best we have. This is the thing protecting our voting. A little disturbing, but it is what it is. So still, everyone, I hope you vote. We can always check after the fact and look for any kind of fudging, but there you have it. Now, plenty more articles that we can talk about here. How about some that aren't so, get you in such a foul mood? Let's talk about, all right, robots. We mentioned it a couple times there with AMD, the idea of artificial intelligence and it being able to do more and more into the future. One thing that AI has been able to do recently is to be a smart speaker in your home, be able to communicate with you what it has to tell you, and for it to understand humans, for it to understand what you are trying to say. But we can go a step further. And this is where a company, I've never heard of them before, but obviously, first time for everything, Fur Hat Robotics. Yeah, their logo is indeed a gentleman wearing a fur hat. But voice assistants have had benefits, but it can be a bit weird to talk to a faceless robot all day. Where now a Stockholm-based technology startup, Fur Hat Robotics, is putting a face to our interactions with AI. And now they have one named after themselves called Fur Hat, which is a social robot that is capable of displaying human-like expressions and emotions on customizable faces. The company showed off the latest generation of the social robot today at Web Summit. I had to check this out. This is Yeah, this is definitely weird. So we're gonna pull up their website, and you can see an image there. Ooh, that is spooky. So yeah, we're gonna leave the robot there emoting in the background. A long way to go, but obviously it's a start. Saying that it took, if you took your standard smart speaker and slapped a disembodied head on top of it, you'd get fur hat. Pretty good way to describe this thing. Saying that the robot uses a projection system to display a pretty lifelike, so not extremely, but a decently lifelike image onto a head-shaped display, where the social robot has been programmed with a wide range of emotions, everything including confusion to rage to anything else a human might need to convey. And according to the company, it speaks, listens, and reacts accordingly, all while maintaining eye contact. Yes, your robot can now maintain eye contact. I am so uncomfortable with this thing. They say it's customizable. You can change the face, you can change expressions, you can change the voice, you can change everything up to including personalities. That's right, you can have unique personalities. I'm wondering if you can upload a maniac into this thing and you can just have an AI just go completely bonkers on you. That would be fun. Now, they said that it's all in the name of making human to robot interactions feel more natural, which is an area AI often struggles with. You probably are never going to see a fur hat in your home, at least not in its current form. The creators are positioning the robot as a tool primarily for business and organization. The robotic firm suggests that fur hat can be used to interact with customers, train employees, or teach a language. So maybe, just maybe, a replacement for teachers, definitely a replacement for front end, front of house, maybe restaurants and things like that, or hotel checking in and out. Hey, we are looking at what is essentially the workforce of tomorrow. And everyone with everyone who stands behind a cash register, maybe this will be the way that those go away. Unfortunate, but technology marches on. Again, if you haven't seen the video of this, definitely check out the video portion because, it's freaky. So, they had a pretty basic one, and then, you can get a little bit more human, you can get male, female, customize it, and a lot of improvement I think needs to happen, but at the same time, certainly something different. Certainly something different. So, there you go, fur hats. Can't wait to hear more from them. All right, let's see. What are some of the other big stories that we had today? How about this one? So, our overlords, not saying that they pay for the show, but they probably run the country by now. Amazon, they have made a pretty big move, and it's worth mentioning. Amazon to roll out free shipping to everyone during the 2018 holiday season. That's right, if you thought monopolies couldn't get any more monopolistic, here we go. Saying that 'tis the season for online shopping, especially if Amazon is your go-to destination. Saying that the mega online retailer announced it will offer free shipping on all holiday orders in time for Christmas, doing away with a minimum purchase price, even if you aren't a Prime member. Now, the company had previously set a threshold of $25, and starting Monday, according to the company, they will waive even that, saying that hundreds of millions of items will therefore become eligible for free shipping. Prime members who are already entitled to free 2-day shipping will also receive a new perk. More than 3 million items will be available for same-day delivery during the holiday season. That's right, if you felt like, well, the whole reason I have Amazon Prime was to get this perk, what the heck? Well, now you get free same-day shipping on millions of items. Amazon, I don't know how you do it. You just gave everyone a pay raise, and now you're able to cut costs and cut shipping even to this point. Like I said, man, these guys just have it all over everyone else. Now, let's see. Retailers can expect a robust holiday shopping season. Goes into some numbers, but essentially, all of you out there listening to the show, especially if you are an American consumer, the analysts are very happy with you. They are excited for you to spend your money. So, congratulations. I guess you're doing well. But yeah, hey, I thought that was an interesting move from Amazon, and to see that, pretty different. Okay, how about another fun story? The media took this one way, and we are going to take it, I guess, a bit more cautionary, even though the language is much more exciting. So there's this body. It's an oddly shaped interstellar asteroid called Oumuamua. I'm sure I'm saying that right. Oumuamua. I don't know. Oumuamua. I'm sure there's a better way to say that, but here we have it. Saying that particular asteroid, which I will be referring to the asteroid from now on instead of that name, saying that they had a research paper trying to analyze where it came from, how did it get here. It's very long, think almost cigar shaped. It's not your typical asteroid, not your typical ball of ice flinging through the galaxy, but rather it is long and very, very oddly shaped. So they're wondering, how did this thing get formed? How did it get here? What is its purpose? Things like that. Saying that scientists still aren't sure what the oddly cigar-shaped object is, and they were further intrigued when they observed it accelerating away from the sun. An analysis based upon multiple telescopes aimed at the object last year found that the asteroid accelerated away from our sun significantly faster than we could explain by gravity alone. That's right, there's some hokum going on here, where unfortunately scientists had no great explanation as to why this actually happened. Now, that doesn't mean a number of things, but one possible explanation. One explanation some people were saying were things called solar sails, saying that it may be able to gain a bit more propulsion because of the radiation pressure coming away from the sun, pushing this thing away. Obviously, very counterintuitive to how gravity works, but hey, that could have been one of the reasons. They wrote a paper. The scientists who were analyzing this, checking this thing out, they wrote a paper. And the authors present a more exotic scenario in which they speculate that the asteroid may be a fully operational probe sent initially to Earth. Intentionally to Earth vicinity by an alien civilization. That's right. Within the paper itself, they said, we can't rule out the possibility that this strangely shaped, unexplainable, moving faster than what we can predict object is a probe sent by an alien civilization. And what do you think they went with? Do you think that the media in general went with the idea that maybe the solar pressure was pushing away this weird object and that was the cause of it, which, more testing and more simulations need to happen? Or do you think they took it as, hey, aliens are checking us out. Aren't we one sexy society? Yeah. The media, of course, went all over with the alien story. So as Ars Technica said, in recent days, some media have seized upon this single line from the paper, saying that such language, especially from a source like Harvard scientists, is catnip for online news editors, with the possibility of using phrases like aliens and mysterious cigar-shaped object and Harvard researchers in the same headline. That's right. And trust me, it's no small coincidence that this happened. I'm sure that the Harvard researchers themselves took a pretty, uninteresting topic, because a giant rock floating in space isn't that exciting. But when you start throwing around such as unexplained, mysterious, and aliens and Harvard researchers, when you mix all that together, even the Harvard researchers themselves are able to get a bit more publicity, and they like that too. So, hey, here we are talking about it. Everything from Google News, CNN, and more were covering this object with the same amount of interest. Now, this is not the cause. This is not even what they think it is. This is not the leading idea. Despite what the articles are saying, that hey, maybe aliens sent this. But it's interesting enough that they seized upon it. So one of the last segments here from this article saying that, quote, "Some of us are more conservative, of course, and it surely varies by field, but in my area," and this is a quote by one of the scientists on the paper, saying that there's generally no downside to publishing something that's somehow interesting and not completely ruled out, whether or not it ends up being the right answer. So I guess she's trying to justify essentially making research clickbait. But yeah, super tiny possibility that this is an alien probe, and a much higher probability that this is simply clickbait. But there you have it. Now, we have time for just one more article, one more real quick one. Let's see if we can end on something. Actually, this was a big enough article. I saw it in a couple places, picked up on it from a gadget, and certainly something that I wanted to make mention of. Microsoft and Cortana. Now, artificial intelligence, actually, I don't even want to call Cortana that. Personal digital assistant. PDA, why not? Cortana has not been the most robust AI on our computer, or the most robust digital assistant. She is everywhere. She's probably the most prolific one by being on every, I was about to say Windows phone. Not too many of those anymore. By being on every Windows computer by default and helping people, but she's still not in the limelight. Maybe, just maybe, that might have been a reason for the head of the Cortana division, the AI assistance division, to be leaving. That's right. Microsoft's Cortana's boss is reportedly leaving the company, saying that Javier Soltero would exit as the AI assistant's role changes. Now, they said that Cortana's role at Microsoft is evolving, and he said that and the team in charge of the AI assistant looks to be changing as well. Where ZDNet sources claim that Microsoft's VP of Cortana, Javier Soltero, is leaving by the end of 2018, saying that the executive who came to Microsoft when it bought mail startup Acompli reported plans to return to entrepreneurial pursuits, so to start his own company. Saying that if accurate, Soltero exit could be a sign that Microsoft will handle Cortana going forward. The computing giant said in October that it would move Cortana from the AI and research team to Experiences and Devices group run by Rajesh Jha. Soltero might not be as vital to Cortana's future as he was weeks ago. So by moving her from research and development, or at least AI and research, to Experience and Devices, that means that Cortana's role shifts from some kind of futuristic, put your eggs in this basket, there's going to be a lot of research to do, and now it's going to become Cortana is part of the interface. How do we get Cortana to do more things to make people's lives easier? Not even how do we get Cortana to change computing as we know it, and now it's how do we get Cortana to open your email more effectively or predict what you're going to do. Saying that where it used to be pitched mainly as a voice assistant meant to challenge the likes of Alexa and Google, Microsoft has more lately characterized it as a behind-the-scenes helper. Cortana simply isn't the marquee item it once was, even if it still has plenty of life left. There you go, John Fingus and Gadget. And yeah, I definitely thought that was a very interesting article when it came to Cortana's role at the company. Certainly other companies that have their own digital assistant, they are not seeing any kind of slowdown when it comes to their AI. But Microsoft has certainly had trouble making Cortana catch on, like Alexa, like Google Home, and some of the others. So Yeah, I'm not upset about this whatsoever. I think Cortana would do lovely as a behind the scenes, not as vocal part of the operating system. And if she can refine herself, and I keep personifying her as a she, if Cortana, the system, can keep refining itself as a better, improved search engine or search function of a computer, there's a lot of improvement that can be done there. So, but everyone, the music playing in the background means that we are done for the day. I want to thank everyone out there who of course tuned in today. I want to thank AMD for coming on the program, telling us all about what they are going to be talking about out there with Tifka. And of course, always enjoy waxing nostalgic about the future and the past of computing. Now, tomorrow on the program, if everything goes according to plan, which it absolutely should, we have the one, the only Block Safe Technologies, where we'll be talking about blockchain, cryptocurrency, crypto defender. Been a while since we touched base on that, and hey, I thought this looked like a lot of fun. We're going to be talking Block Safe Technologies tomorrow. And in the meantime, have a great day. Thank you for catching us. Check us out wherever podcasts are heard if you miss any part of today's show or past shows. And catch you here next time, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday Eastern. Have a great day. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.